Hello fellow Paragon players, this is Scarlet Rose here, in-game name Scarlet Rogue, bringing you my extended version of Crunch's build analysis. We said let's make a build, let's get him out there, and we did. In case you haven't checked it out from the last video guys, the link to the online outline guide is actually still available in the description of this video, so if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely give it a look. It has been updated post-trial on the build locations, and it is updated on that page. I made it myself. I'm also bringing an optional second build this video, and I will be mentioning some things I didn't mention last time that were supposed to be in there that I simply forgot. So, one, I've been getting a lot of questions and feedback about this question right here. I don't have Incessant Onslaught, guys. As much as I'd love to have it and need it, and probably for this build more than any other, it would be a huge dramatic change to the whole deck, and I would look forward to that day, but I just don't have it, and it hurts me even more because I hear it was in a weekly card pack. But in a lighter regard, we do finally have Satori Cloak, and hopefully that's available for everyone. Hopefully you have enough reputation, because that's in the weekly card pack right now, so we'll get into that with the optional build. Next, I made my last video on Crunch very early in the morning, guys, right after he dropped, so I could get the content out to you as soon as possible and spread some ideas. And although I did spend some time watching the developer stream when Crunch was dropped, I gotta admit I made a huge mistake. So I mistakenly assumed that Crunch's cooldown on his basic attacks were basically just passives, like a passive percentage on the cooldown. I did not expect to see or notice that it was literally shaving off fractions of a second on all abilities on each and every hit, okay? So with that brings my largest modification that we're going to get into, and just the basic realization that attack speed is cooldown with Crunch. That we need to invest in kinetic, and that too much like points, CXP spent on cooldown is pretty much just a waste of time when it comes to this hero. So we're going to dive right in, and here's the second build, Counter Crunch, that we've made, but we're going to go into Kraken-Crunch first, which is what we had before. We still have the Warlord because we have a lot of health in this build, and it just makes us that much deadlier in conjunction with our abilities. And I really liked the way it played out when we got OP like 3 or 4 times in the match that I played, so that was really nice. I threw on a guard token here just because there seems to be a lot of, rumor going around. I don't really know that, this Crunch hero is squishy or fragile, but I think it's just a matter of, simply playing smart, farming well, and this will definitely help you whether you're in lane or jungle, because Crunch is, he's a frontline fighter. He needs to be up in minions' faces or heroes' faces for him to do anything. So I thought I might throw this on here and try it out. Maybe not. If I don't want to, then it's there and I can just use it until I get my tempered barrier or something. Anyway, we have a health pot from before, a health token from before, and this is the next thing that I immediately realized that I was struggling with mana up until I got at least a Brawler's Ward or Silver Spear, or even a Quartz Blade with its mana regen. I just found I was really struggling with the low mana pool, and I'm hoping that this mana potion is really gonna help speed up the early game so that we can, become a lot more dangerous. Strike token from before, and here's the major modification, guys. In the last video, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but I had Advanced Chronos slotted in here along with the Brutal Kinetics and the Major Strikes, sorry. So I just took those right out, and I just said we're going to invest in Kinetic for a cooldown and 1 Major Strike, and Berserker Drive still has my popular vote because even that 5% cooldown reduction is nice to have, and it probably helps in more ways than you can actually imagine without wasting too many points on cooldown like we were discussing before. The next thing is I totally swapped out Rageheart Engine for Flashfire Piston, and I think this is a wise move, and also because I didn't have that second Universal Pierce, and it was just a cooldown otherwise, and I just didn't like it. So I thought, hey, why not? We'll make a 12-point flash fire piston. And we have a few options with this. You could even go health pot and flash fire piston right away early game, and you can basically keep that, leave it alone until you get your wards and then the quartz blade and silver spear, and then at that point you can totally ditch the health pot upon next level up and get your vicious kinetic on flash fire piston and start building that. So, you know, that's never a bad idea. The rest of the build's pretty much the same. You guys, there's not a whole lot other than those two major tweaks there. I really enjoyed the style. I noticed in the match that I played against Crunch, he had about 4 or 5 silver spears, I can't remember. And yeah, he was dangerous for maybe like 10 seconds. And, you know, even 1v1, I feel like he's really pushing it with his low health pool. So I like playing the survivability and swapping out for mana later and a little bit more attack. But hey, that's just me. We're getting ideas out, swapping some theories, some things where, you know, hopefully you guys are active in the comments thread, and you know, we find what works best with Crunch. I also found that he was awesome for farming jungle camps. I'm not so sure you could do it early because of how fragile he is, but definitely like early mid game, at some point when you reach your power spike, you should immediately start farming in the jungle if you haven't already. And I think that jungling right away with Crunch is totally viable. Totally viable. So we're gonna back out here and go to counter Crunch. This is more of a, it's kind of a different experimental build. I haven't tried this one yet, but it's a lot different. I'm not gonna say it's similar at all. First of all, we're gonna change this and put that Warlord on. We don't want the Archmages. Physical heroes and all. I was a little bit stretched here. I had more consumables and a mana potion and a strike token, but a deck that I needed to minimize my consumables and focus more on just having options for cards. Okay, so here's another flash fire piston with just a little bit more kinetic than the one on the other build, because most of our kinetic is going to come from here and probably not Rage Hard Engine. Here's an Amulet of the Veteran. I like slotting strike and then health and then a strike, or either a health and then strike and then a health again, simply because it's not at odds with the CXP system. You get 3 points, you get the amulet, you get 3 points, you get a little bit of strike, you get a little bit of health, whichever way you want to put it. Less strike, more health, less health, more strike, doesn't matter. If you go minor strike and strike, for example, when you invest that 3 points, you're just getting a major strike token. You might as well just spend it on the 3. But for things like early game, I like spreading things out, like, oh, I need a little bit of damage, I need a little bit of health, so I definitely like to mix it up. Whatever it is, I keep the odd one in the middle, for sure. Here's Brawler's Award, and I did this because I wanted this build to be, it's less offensive, but situationally it could be very deadly. I just picked Brawler's Ward with less strikes and more mana on it, so we could just use our abilities even more. I also have 2 quick 6s here of a Tempered Plate and a Tune Barrier. Luckily I have the lesser healths, minor barriers, and one minor guard to get me by, and those will really help with the early game as we upgrade to our 12-point Tempered Plate and Tune Barrier. I have 3 guards on the Tempered Plate for one reason that I'm about to get into, and 2 barriers on the Tune Barrier and a health for another reason, because basically these are your 6 cards here, the 5 cards: Flash Fire Piston, Amulet of the Veteran, Brawler's Ward, Tempered Plate, and Tune Barrier. And at that point we can pick another 9-point card, whether that's Silver Spear for even more mana and we can rely on those abilities, or a 9-point Blink Shot, which I say is totally viable. And I know the Chrono shouldn't be on there, and I only wanted, really guys, I only wanted a basic Chrono, but this is just how it worked out. I had these at 6 points before, but I had to put them up to 9. so they were interchangeable with Silver Spear, and I had to reduce the value of Amulet of the Veterans to do that. So Blink Shot I think is really cool with Crunch. I think it's probably the best epic active tele card other than Blink Charm, simply because you can use it anytime. You don't, doesn't matter when you receive damage or not. It's sort of like Blink Charm in that regard, but I believe it has even longer cooldown. I'm not too sure. I need to double check on that. But the coolest thing about it is when you secure a kill, it resets, so you can use it to get that enemy that's just out of range of Crunch, maybe just a little bit, even beyond his dash, and you can use it to get away. And I saw in the developer stream that he did indeed have a Blink Charm, and it did look handy. So I also chose it because we can upgrade it to whatever value we need, like 6 or 9, because we don't really want that odd card 5, just because it makes leveling up weird. And the only build I do that on is with Severog, only because I'm so familiar with it, and it's situational in so many different ways. So I also got Stone of Salvation and Satori Cloak, and that you can see that there is a Celestial Barrier on the Satori Cloak to make up for this Toon Barrier's missing armor, so there's a little bit more health there if we want to decide to go that way. And we can use Stone of Salvation. I decided to put Life Drain on it instead of Chrono because, as we discussed, Chrono is kind of a waste, and if we can get a little bit more health, but with the amount of armor we have, it should give us at least a little bit of 6 seconds of complete assault power, and when we do that, we spam our abilities and we should be securing kills. That should only take 6 to 10 seconds anyway. So I wanted to throw that in here. This build has huge amount of options, and it's kind of for you guys to play with. I also want to talk about one other thing. So I'm going to go back to Paragon-Crunch here because it's going to be my primary build, and we can just kind of look at it to get a better idea. Now, one final note, I can understand that when Crunch dropped epic, recommended crit damage and critical chance like every other Fury hero, not to mention the crit cards in the Order affinity, things like Zealous Wound. However, there is one major factor with Crunch regarding his passive, and that's cooldown, built into his kit, relying more on comboing abilities than actually, hitting with critical strikes. We all know critical strikes don't, scale or even affect your abilities, and it seems kind of just out of place that Crunch is up in your face using basic attacks, but also using his abilities. I don't know about you, but I'm going to rely more on my abilities in situations than my basic strike, even for a brawler. But that's just me. I know there's lots of different opinions, but the fact of the matter is that with the current meta right now, since the last few patches, crit is simply, I'm going to be very specific with my wording so I don't get attacked here, just simply not as fruitful as it used to be. Although I agree that it's totally viable, and I've seen people whoop some ass with crit chance and crit damage, it just makes sense to stack Crunch's cooldown with kinetic and do damage, because his abilities are just monstrous. If we're chaining them together properly and managing them efficiently, and we're not being sloppy and mismanaging our combos, and we're hitting with all of our abilities so we're not wasting mana either, we don't need crit chance, okay? So that's my final touchings on that. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content of this video, please like, share, or subscribe, and stay tuned for further hero analysis. See ya!